In this video, we'll have a basic overview of Blender 2.8 interface. So here, when you open Blender for the first time, you will have to choose here what kind of shortcuts you want, how you will want to select, and what will be the action of the spacebar and your theme. So for the shortcut, I recommend you to use the Blender here by default, because if you use, for example, industry compatible, it will not be easy to follow this training. So I will recommend you to use this one. I will use the left select as it's enabled now for Blender 2.8. Before it was for 2.7 it was right click by default, but now it's left click, and honestly I prefer it. And here for the spacebar, you can choose what you will do with what will be the spacebar action. So here I will just use the search, because I like the search action for the spacebar, and I will save the new settings. And okay, you're done. Now you can enter into Blender. You just have to click out of the splash screen and you will have your interface. So here I will just enable a little option. This option you don't have to do it yourself and you will not find it. It's just something that will allows you to follow my actions there. So you will have the possibility to follow the left click, the middle click, the right click here, and whatever shortcut I will use. Like for example, if I duplicate this object by doing Shift D, you will see the shortcut that I will use during the action. So here I remove here the cube. If I do Ctrl Z, for example, okay, you can see that here the shortcut will appear. So Blender interface is split in, let's say, 5 parts. You will have on the top here, the top bar, you have the 3D view here. Okay, like here you have, it's here that everything in 3D will appear, your objects and everything. And here you have the timeline. This one is related to animation. Here you have the outliner. It's there that you can select and manage your objects into your scene. And here you have the property editor. So in this video, we will discover here the top bar. We will just have a basic overview on the timeline here and on the outliner. I will do an entire video for the 3D view and an entire video for the property editor here, because the properties editor, it's really, you have a lot of things, a lot of possibilities to look at. So I will just focus on this on an entire video. So let's start by the top bar here. The first menu, it's here you have the possibility to come back to your splash screen, for example, or how to support Blender and how to go into the possibilities of here the links to the Blender websites and the help. Here into the file menu, you have all the basic actions that you will find into a software, like Ctrl S for save, Ctrl Shift S for save as, Ctrl O for open, Ctrl M for new. And here you have other options here, like the import and the export options here. Link and append, it's to take an object from another blend file here. Here you have the external data, like for example, if you use some textures into your blend file and that you want this texture to be included into the blend file, you will just enable automatically pack into the blend file here. And for the default here, if for example you made a modification, like for example here, I don't know, I will do a modification, like I will enable this and that, for example. And if I do, for example, here, the save startup file, every time I will open Blender, these options will appear, okay? So me, I don't want it for now. I leave this by default, but you can like this change your, let's say, opening Blender file, okay? Into the edit menu, we have the undo and redo, undo history, repeat last and repeat history. Okay, you can here have the possibility to search an action that you want to do, and we did enable it with the spacebar anyway. So if we want to do a research, if I search, for example, move something, okay, I will have the move here and I will move my object. Okay, so here, to continue into the edit menu, you have the possibility here to go to the preferences, and we will do an entire video about that. Into the render section here, you will have the possibility to render an image. So what is render an image basically? In our scene, we have here our cube. Okay, by default, we have the camera. Here it's a second object, and we have the light. And if you go into camera view with 0 numpad, you will have the camera view and see what you will take as an image. Okay, it's like you can imagine this object as a real camera. Okay, and now if you go to camera view with numpad, you can see that you have this view. And if you want to take a picture of this view, it's there that you will go with the render image. Okay, and Blender will render what will happen into your scene. So you have a cube and a light, so you have a basic cube render here. So it will give you another window, and in this window it will be the image editor, and you can just render your image somewhere. For example, save your image somewhere. So if I save this image as a PNG somewhere in my computer, I can open it, or in JPEG or whatever file you want to use. Okay, so I will close this window and come back to my 3D view. Okay, so it's possible to make a render animation when you did set up an animation, but we will see this into the last chapters. You have the possibility to render audio. If you have some audio into your scene, you can view render, view animation if you want to. Lock the interface if you want the interface to not move by mistake. Here into the window section, you have the possibility to make a new window if you have a double screen, for example. So you can use 2 screens like that. You can use a full screen by default, like this too, if you want. And here we will talk about the workspace that are here after. Okay, into the help section, you will have the possibility to go to the support and to go to communities to ask some questions or things like that. Into the window section, there is one that is interesting. It's a save screenshot here, so you can basically save what you have into your interface. So it will be good for example, if you have some questions during this training, you just save a screenshot like this, okay, somewhere, and you send it to me, and like this I will see what's happening to you, and it will be easier. So you can save a screenshot directly from here. Good. The help section, as it says, it's to help you and to find some informations for the communities and everything. And here we have the workspace options here. So Blender basically has a default workspace, and it's an interface that I show you for now, and it's a little for everything. We have the possibility to make some modeling, we have the possibility to make a little animation. If we go there, we can have some shader options and everything. You can select your object. So it's a multitask, let's say, layout, this one. But you have some specific layouts that are done and ready to use here. So if, for example, you want to do some modeling only, you will go to this interface, and Blenders go directly inside the object into edit mode, and you can see that the timeline did disappear because we will not use animation, and so it's more focused on modeling here. Into the sculpting, you will have the same kind of interface, but we'll focus with the sculpt mode here directly, and with a good visualization of your object ready to sculpt. Here the same thing, when you want to make some UV editing. So UV editing is just to unwrap your object into a 2D section here. So you have a 3D object and it will be in 2D when it's unwrapped like that. But we will have a full chapter about this later. Texture paint will allow you to paint on your object. Into the shading section, you will go directly to manage your nodes and everything to make a nice shader and how your object will react with the light around. Here you will have a layout specific for animation. So you have a double here view. Here you have the view into the camera view like this. Directly you can see what's happening into your camera view and in 3D here. So if I move my cube, for example, you can see that it will move there too. And you have a specific here dope sheet editor, a more advanced let's say editor for animation here. For the rendering, you go directly into an image editor view here. For the compositing, you will have the possibility here to manage the animation and there a big node editor to manage your compositing into your images. And here you have the scripting there. So all these interfaces are ready to use, and you will see that sometimes we will move from one to another just to manage a specific task. Okay, so here it was the top bar. For here the 3D view, so as I told you, we will manage this in an entire video later. For the timeline, I will open it a little more, just like this you can see what will happen. So you have the possibility here to read your animation, to pause it, to go back into your animation, to go in the beginning of your animation, okay? To jump keyframes to keyframes if you have some keyframes. Now we don't have. You have the possibility to record what you do, and all of this we will have a more advanced view on that into the chapter for animation. And here it's my animation that I can just play like this with click and drag, okay? But I can to here, for example, you will have the possibility to insert some keyframes, but it's not really time for that now. But basically, if you have a cube that is here and you insert a keyframe, okay, and here you move the cube a little and you insert a keyframe, and you can move your cube like that, okay? So it's just a basic animation, but it's not really time for that. I will just remove here the keyframes like this, okay? And you have the possibility here to see the frames, and these frames, it's one image. So you can here you start the animation at 1 and you finish the animation at 250 frames. And it depends your FPS, and your FPS is here. FPS is frame per second. So you have 24 frames per second by default. And if you have 250 frames in your animation here, you can say basically that it will be 10 seconds and something. Okay? So here the possibility to look at your animation. That's it for the timeline for now. We will have anyway a full chapter about that later. Here you have the possibility to select your objects directly into the outliner here. Okay, so the outliner allows you, as I told you, to select here your objects like you will do in the 3D view if you make a left click, okay? But it allows you to create some collections and to organize your scene how you want to organize it. It allows you to hide your objects. For example, if I have a cube here, I can hide it. Good. And you have the possibility to enable it into the 3D view with the little eye. But you have the possibility, for example, I will enable this one and that one here. You have the possibility to enable it for select, for example. So here, if I disable this one, I cannot select my cube anymore. Okay, so it can be interesting if you don't want to move an object by mistake, for example. You can just here disable the selection. Okay, so this one is interesting. And you can disable the rendering too. So for example, let's say I have two objects in my scene. I will add another object. Let's say it will be a sphere. Okay, and this sphere will be here. I will show you how to do that later for sure. But let's say we have two objects for now into our 3D view like that. And if I do a render, now you can see my two objects will appear into my render. So nothing crazy about that. But if I just select my sphere here and tells that it's enabled into the 3D view but not into the render, I will make an F12 and you can see that only my cube will appear. Okay, and if I enable my sphere and disable my cube, for example, I will make a render and only my sphere will be here. So just a basic understanding that it can be interesting sometimes to enable some objects into the 3D view and not in the render, and basically the inverse. Okay, so you have the possibility to do things like that into the outliner. You have the possibility to rename your object. Okay, so let's say this one, I would like to rename it, what can be a cube? A cube can be a house. Okay, let's go. House. And now I double click on it and I have my object that is well renamed. And I really recommend you to do this during all the training. Rename your objects here. It will be always easier to select it after. Especially like sometimes you are in the 3D view and it can happen that where is my object? I turn around, I cannot see anything, and you did move somewhere, I don't know, and you did lose yourself. You just select your object and you just, with the numpad here, period, you can focus directly into your object here after you zoom out and you are good to go. So you select an object, you focus on it, and you zoom out and you turn around, okay, with the middle mouse click. So like that you cannot lose yourself. You just have to select your object and do a focus into it. So that's it for the outliner. And for the properties, as I told you, we will just make an entire video because a lot of options to discover are here. So that's it for the discover of the default interface. In the next video, we'll have a look on how to customize the interface.